the stakes are enormous. You're talking about people's lives and people's health. I don't want to put down any other profession, but it just seems to me that you can't get much better than that if that's what you're suited for and that's what you want to do.
Absolutely. And we're so happy that you have that drive and that commitment to that mission.
We're looking at these war games that are focused on novel outbreaks of pandemics.
Usually Johns Hopkins University is right in the middle of all of it. A little similar to the COVID-19.
Yeah.
You'll be amazed at how much of this stuff correlates and then how much of it they just got completely wrong.
Because it's very hard to simulate human behavior in the wild.
Hashtag stop SPARS by washing your hands and avoiding public places if you feel sick. Conspiracy theories also proliferated across social media, suggesting that the virus had been purposely created and introduced to the population by drug companies or that it had escaped from a government lab. One of the things they mainly focus on is people getting misinformation.
Of course.
Through the content that they're consuming. How might federal health authorities avoid people possibly seeing an expedited SPARS vaccine development and testing process as somehow rushed? As time passed, more and more people across the United States were vaccinated. Claims of adverse side effects began to emerge.
In this proposed scenario, not real life. Welcome to Conspiracy Playtime Podcast.
Some people actually believe that the world is run by shape-shifting alien reptiles.
No fucking way.
I think just the whole podcast is rated R.
Will there be titty?
What the fuck is a conspiracy theory?
When two separate events occur simultaneously pertaining to the same object of inquiry, you must always pay strict attention.
The only Jewish conspiracy there is that I'm circumcised.
And there's this guy from the CIA and he's creeping around Laurel Canyon.
So anyone at any given time could be infected, don't even know it, and feel perfectly well. That's really the nature of science.
Come on, man. That's like saying before you got in this program, you take a test where you're taking cocaine or not. What do you think, huh?
I don't think so. I don't think so.
I'm not a smart man, but I know what love is.
We need to get the fuck out of here!
Fixing that testing regime, we need to have that in place before we move to that next phase.
I don't know what to do about the depression and the inflation and the Russians and the crime in the street. All I know is that first, you've got to get mad. You've got to say, I'm a human being. God damn it. My life has value.
I have come here to chew bubblegum and kick ass.
I strongly believe that.
I do.
And I'm all out of bubblegum.
The FBI killed Martin Luther King.
It's fucking making sense to me now.
How many vaccines have you had? Have you been a good little Nazi? Hail Fauci! Hail Fauci!
If our own government was responsible for the deaths of almost 100,000 people, would you really want to know?
Yeah.
Roll up your sleeves, take your shot, wear your mask, and please stay safe out there.
Hello and welcome to 2022, the year where shit gets fucked up. Oh wait, that was 2 years ago, just kidding. Or maybe
2020 part 2?
Oh, 2020 part 2. That's a good idea. But, I think we're going to learn today that this shit goes way back. And we're going to be diving down the rabbit hole of a simulation that happened a number of years ago called the SPARS pandemic. But before we go too far into that, my name is Jeremiah. My co-host is Colby over there. And together we are the Conspiracy Playtime podcast, where it's a safe place for you and me to discuss ideas that might get us canceled, CIA blacklisted, raided by the FBI, or just, life may be entirely miserable for us because we see through the rose-colored glasses of our consumerism world where everything seems to be just peachy. Everything's fine. There's a dumpster fire out back. Inflation's through the roof, but everything is fine. Don't panic. Just buy some more stuff from Amazon, preferably. So with that introduction, it's been a while since we've seen y'all, or maybe since you've seen us all. I don't know how that works, but...
Well, it was December 16th that we last dropped an episode.
Merry Christmas,
You
Happy
and I
Hanukkah.
haven't seen each other since November 11th.
It's been a while. So we're going to break in this new year with a juicy one here and try to understand a little bit more of the plan, the plot, the scheme. I'm going to hand it over to Colby here, who's done all the research, and I'm just going to be along for the ride and see what I can add to this story here.
So the first thing we should talk about is you and I have mentioned Event 201 maybe a few times in previous episodes, but I'm sure our listeners, if they've heard of these simulations, Event 201 would probably be the most commonly known among our circles. But that one was gamed in 2019, right?
Yes. And so these are computer and also computer simulations, but they also seem to enact some human characters also. It's almost like they're playing like Monopoly, but they've kind of got it rigged into such a scenario. And this is fairly common, like war game tactics, where the generals and the commanders will kind of game play out scenarios in war. And so these simulations that we're talking about are very similar to that nature, but we're looking at these war games that are focused on novel outbreaks of pandemics.
So, and it's usually Johns Hopkins University is right in the middle of all of it. Throughout the years, I believe since 2003, they have received hundreds of millions of dollars of funding from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. And that foundation actually did help game out Event 201. This one, I couldn't find any connection other than the money trail. Take a look at the graphic.
Right, yeah, that looks like
it's
pretty close to the...
A little similar to the COVID-19.
Yeah.
So it's called the SPARS Pandemic 2025 to 2028. And some quick math here. They did this in 2017. They projected the year of this pandemic taking place to be 2025. So if they did call something, they put it a little further into the future than what actually did happen. So you look here, you'll just see the project team. We've got some PhDs. I don't know if any of these names are that recognizable.
Right, hard to say. I would have to kind of dig into that some more.
Bloomberg
School of Public Health.
Yes. We're going to just give a brief overview of it. If you want to take a look in depth on your own, this is right off of Johns Hopkins' website. We're going to put it in the show notes for easy access. The Johns Hopkins Center for Health Security works to protect people from epidemics and disasters and build resilient communities through innovative scholarship, engagement, and research that strengthens the organizations, systems, policies, and programs essential to preventing and responding to public health crises. So yeah, what's it say? Bloomberg School of Health is located in Baltimore, Maryland. I mean, Bloomberg, he's got his money all over
Bloomberg
the
has
place.
donated a total of $2.9 billion to the Johns Hopkins University over a period of several decades.
Does it say like when that first
The
donation?
school was renamed the Johns Hopkins Bloomberg School of Public Health on April 20th, 2001. That's an interesting date, huh? 4/20/01.
That's Adolf Hitler's birthday.
In honor of Michael Bloomberg for his financial support and commitment to the school and the Johns Hopkins University. Also, this school was founded in 1916 by William Welch with a grant from none other than Brrr. The Rockefeller Foundation.
Who are they?
I've heard they've got big money.
Little disclaimer before we dive into this. This is a hypothetical scenario.
Yeah, we're just talking
Just so you know
hypothetical. We're not spewing any nonsense. There's no conspiracies. We're just going over a scenario that somebody planned out. You know.
Here's a little intro. Possible future in 2025. The echo chamber being in quotations. What they're focusing on here is unbridled global access to information coupled with social fragmentation and self-affirming worldviews.
And this was in what year? 2017?
2017 that they mapped this out.
You know, there was certainly some of this happening to a degree, but it was pretty narrow. You know, this self-affirming worldviews, echo chambers. I think that's kind of what Jordan Peterson was talking about back then, you know. It's like, you got to watch out for these things.
Scenario purpose. The following narrative comprises a futuristic scenario that illustrates communication dilemmas concerning medical countermeasures that could possibly emerge in the not-so-distant future.
Its purpose is to prompt users both individually and in discussion with others to imagine the dynamic and oftentimes conflated circumstances in which communication around emergency medical countermeasures.
So what's interesting about this is the time frame for this pandemic, this gamed pandemic, is 2025 to 2028. And I mean, we would say 2019 was when COVID-19 started, right?
Technically.
So we're already on year 3 then. In this scenario, if we're to line it up with what's going on today, we could be at the end of this thing. And you'll be amazed at how much of this stuff correlates and then how much of it they just got completely wrong.
Because it's very hard to simulate human behavior in the wild.
Here's the scenario environment. In the year 2025, the world has become simultaneously more connected yet more divided. Nearly universal access to wireless internet and new technology. And they come up with this thing called Internet Accessing Technology,
oh my gosh.
IAT.
Which is instead of Internet of Technology or Internet of Things, which is the IoT. So that's all your smart devices.
Yes.
Wow.
It's one of those first things where it's just like one letter is off.
Wow.
And this is thin, flexible screens that could be temporarily attached to briefcases, backpack, or clothing. And I mean, you know, by 2025, we probably will have that.
Definitely something very similar. So these internet accessing technologies, so it's not Internet of Things. It's a very specific, thin, flexible screen that can be temporarily attached to briefcases, backpacks, or clothing and used to stream content from the internet. So here's something to note, is that this talks about these internet accessing technology devices are just for receiving content, for consuming content. We are a world of consumers. It is not a creative device.
And it's also, for them, it kind of bites them in the ass. I might be getting a little bit ahead of myself here, but having access to the information, one of the things they mainly focus on throughout here is people getting misinformation.
Of course.
Through the content that they're consuming.
So go back up a little bit more there. So I like this. However, many have chosen to self-restrict the sources they turn to for information, often electing to interact only with those whom they agree. This trend has increasingly isolated cliques from one another, making communication across and between these groups more and more difficult.
I mean, they did name this chapter the echo chamber.
Right. So they're very much setting that up.
There's some fake players in here.
Oh, yeah. Who's president?
So it's a President Randall Archer who took office.
Archer became president?
Yeah. Took office just in the January of the year 2025. But Archer served as a vice president under President Jacqueline Bennett. Well, and if you look at this, Jacqueline Bennett didn't serve a second term, served till 2024, and didn't serve due to health concerns. So what's that tell you?
Jacqueline Bennett didn't?
Jacqueline Bennett, female president.
Okay.
Did 2020 to 2024, elected not to run again due to health concerns, and so this vice president steps into this. I mean, we're talking like Joe Biden and Kamala. That could very easily take place. I mean, Joe ain't looking too good these days. Another fake person, hypothetical senior staff of the Department of Health and Human Services is Secretary Dr. Sindra Nagel. This name will come up again and again. They're all carryovers from the previous administration. I think one thing that we do need to look at is the social media technologies.
Wait. Oh my God, yeah. Please, let's dive into that because I'm already seeing
Which
some
part?
exciting stuff. The social media technologies.
So they use 3 popular, well-known ones that we do have today: Facebook, Snapchat, and Twitter. But there's an emerging platform called ZapQ.
Oh my God.
Capital ZAP, capital Q. And to me, I can only think this is supposed to represent TikTok.
I 100% felt the same way.
So what it says about it is it's a platform that enables users to aggregate and archive selected media content from other platforms and communicate with cloud-based social groups based on common interests and current events. Federal and state public health organizations have also developed agency-specific applications and ramped up efforts to maintain and update agency websites.
Although I will say their explanation of ZapQ doesn't quite sound like TikTok.
It really doesn't, but the presence of it, as you'll see.
An emerging, Well, and it almost, to me, a platform that enables users to aggregate and archive selected media content. It almost sounds like, and also with the cloud-based social groups based on common interests and current events, that almost sounds like Reddit.
Okay.
In a couple of different ways. There.
Reddit was definitely around in 2017. Right?
Oh, 100%.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty old.
Yeah. But it was kind of just not really, it was kind of in the undergrounds.
We're going to skip ahead a little bit to the response. And this is the emergence. The SPARS outbreak begins, and here's a simulated newspaper article that chronicles the story of a fake person who came up with influenza-type symptoms, but then was hospitalized and tested negative for influenza. And this is where the SPARS name comes from. It's the St. Paul Acute Respiratory. So it's kind of like SARS,
right?
But it's SPARS, and it's called SPARS-CoV. And COVID-19's technical term is SARS-CoV too.
Right.
So this is SPARS-CoV. It's, I mean, once again, where you put a P in there and you take away the number 2, it's the same damn thing.
So,
it's just weird how close they were.
So hold on, what date is that marked? As October 17th, 2025? Yeah. So I'm just curious, thinking about the timeline when the first unknown illness was in, not the Twin Cities, but in Wuhan.
Mm-hmm.
It would be right around that time
It
period.
was like, I think we were starting to see in December maybe news stories about it.
But there was stuff happening before
they've
then
been
that they
sitting
were
on
covering
it for
up.
sure.
Yeah.
It would be interesting. Do we know the specific date that the first COVID positive case came up? So in this scenario, there's a First Baptist Church of St. Paul, Minnesota, where 2 of the members returned from the Philippines. So, of course, it originated in Asia. They brought it back here. And if you look at Event 201, that simulation, it's from Brazil. And it gets on airplanes. Look at this. PCR test.
Oh.
One CD scientist recalled reading a recent ProMed dispatch describing the emergence of a novel coronavirus in Southeast Asia and ran a
pan-coronavirus?
Pan-coronavirus? Is that what PCR stands for?
Well,
I just learned that.
That's a good question.
Kerry Mullis, that's who did the PCR test, who invented them.
Okay.
He died in the summer of 2019, right before all this COVID stuff started happening. And he's also somebody, I mean, RFK Jr. wrote a scathing book about Fauci, but Kerry Mullis also had it out for Fauci. A lot of people speculate that his death, if they did see this coming, that they just kind of got him out of the way. I don't want to get too conspiratorial about it, but that is out there. And look at these. These are some fake tweets. Holiday from the CDC. Holiday travel plans, #stop SPARS by washing your hands and avoiding public places if you feel sick. This is a fake tweet from November 13th of 2025.
Or maybe we should say it's a simulated tweet.
Simulated. Yeah. Maybe I should stop using the word fake.
Yeah, because we're not spreading fake news. We're spreading
simulated news.
We're spreading scenarios from Johns Hopkins Hospital. So this is all scenarios.
Look at this tweet. From the simulated date of November 16th, 2025, 3 days after that first one. If you feel ill, seek attention, use the hashtag vampire cough. And I imagine that's this.
Yeah.
I want to suck.
And you know what that makes me think of? Bats.
Ooh, shit. Good connecting of the dots there. I never put that together. So the CDC monitors the situation closely, working with partners in Southeast Asia to quickly develop a case definition. Within 4 weeks, the CDC's publishing a working case definition on its website. And I mean, that's kind of spot on, really. I don't know about the time frame. But I mean, I think the way that they were reacting to this thing is definitely stuff that they learned gaming this out. And you'll see how they kind of changed the game on some of these things just because of the way the simulation ran. But these look exactly like tweets that we were seeing. Stop the spread.
Right.
And one thing that they don't really focus on here is quarantines, which you do see a lot more of in Event 201. Practice hashtag hygiene during your hashtag Thanksgiving travels.
I like this little sentence right here. Given that flu season was just getting underway and that a rapid diagnostic test for SPARS-CoV infection was not yet available, CDC's officials could not be sure if these were in fact true cases of SPARS. Nevertheless, on November 17th, HHS Secretary notified the World Health Organization about the U.S. cluster of SPARS cases, concerned that the outbreak might constitute a public health emergency of international concern.
And that PHEIC is going to come up, so
okay,
that's what it stands for.
Okay.
We could also scroll down to the very bottom. They have an appendix of,
nice.
of abbreviations if we forget. Okay, look at this. As transmission of SPARS was determined to occur via droplet spread.
Oh.
The CDC initially recommended that everyone diligently maintain hand hygiene and frequently disinfect potentially contaminated surfaces. And before the masks became a big thing in early 2020, they were definitely focusing. I remember people were going home and wiping down their groceries with Lysol and shit. CDC also urged anyone with severe flu-like symptoms to seek immediate medical attention. And I mean, this thing was a little bit later. I think we started seeing this in America in like early in the year,
like March.
But
it was
Thanksgiving,
like February, March.
yeah, like right before we started working together again.
I would say the first 2 weeks of March is when it really went underway.
It was the 12th of March that they canceled the NBA season.
Yeah, I was going to say,
and I went to shopping cart and everybody's fucking buying all the toilet paper.
Yeah, dude. Crazy.
So March 12th.
My birthday's March 14th, and I was like, well, this is going to be a shitty birthday.
It is, isn't it? They use all of these real and simulated social media platforms to spread the word about washing your hands and disinfecting surfaces. And here's what's kind of spot on also. The CDC initially reported an estimated SPARS case fatality rate of 4.7. By contrast, WHO reported the overall case fatality rate for SARS was 14 to 15% and over 50% for people over the age of 64. Later on in the SPARS outbreak, data that included more accurate estimates of mild SPARS cases indicated a case fatality rate of only 0.6%. This is exactly. These numbers are a little high.
Yeah.
Like the 14 to 15% and then the 50%. But, you know, those initial numbers we were getting from the WHO and CDC.
In mild cases of the disease, which produce symptoms including cough, fever, headaches, and malaise, is that how you say it? Malaise? Were often perceived as the flu by people who had them and consequently often went untreated and undiagnosed by medical personnel. As a result, early case fatality estimates were inflated. Okay, similar.
Mm-hmm. Two additional features of the SPARS virus that were not appreciated at the beginning of the pandemic, but that impacted how the outbreak played out, are also important to consider in a review of this event. First, the virus had an extended incubation period, 7 to 10 days, in parentheses, compared to its latent period, 4 to 5 days. Thus, infected persons could spread the virus for up to nearly a week before showing symptoms of the disease themselves. And I mean, how many videos of Fauci talking about this very thing have we all seen?
But then now, as we are in 2022, I've been hearing very commonly people saying that they didn't test positive until they were almost feeling better. So they don't test positive in the beginning of their sickness, during their sickness. So yeah. Oh,
so here's where they got it wrong. Morbidity and mortality from SPARS were both significantly higher in children than adults. Pregnant women and those with chronic respiratory conditions like asthma and emphysema, which does carry over to COVID.
Yep.
But they were wrong about the kids.
Yeah. Wait, go up a little bit more there. Isolating sick SPARS patients proved to be less effective than isolating patients infected by other better characterized respiratory disease.
Just because of the asymptomatic period, probably.
Sure.
Which was true with COVID as well. At the end of each chapter, we're going to see this communication dilemma and food for thought. And this is like where they look at what they just gamed out and they ask themselves the questions of what could we do? So, engendering public trust and a sense of self-efficacy when a crisis is still evolving and health information is incomplete. Food for thought. 1. How can health authorities best meet public demands for critical information, such as what is the health threat and what do I know about it when the crisis is still unfolding and not all the facts are known? What benefits does monitoring trends in social media postings confer on efforts to meet people's information needs during an evolving health crisis? And 3, what medical and morale boosting purposes does sharing information about self-protective actions, such as infection control measures, serve for the public during an uncertain and fear-instilling situation?
You know what I think about that number 3 there?
What's that?
What's something that people do every single day, primarily in Oregon here now, and some other states, that make them feel better about going out in public? They wear a mask.
Oh, of course. And that's another thing that we're not going to see in here.
Oh, okay.
There's no masks in here.
But I like this, what medical and morale boosting purposes does sharing information about self-protective actions.
Little virtue signaling.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Do you remember the name of the drug that Fauci started pushing pretty early on when they're doing the poo-pooing on hydroxychloroquine? You remember what it was?
I can't remember.
It's called remdesivir.
Oh, that's right.
Which hydroxychloroquine's generic, and you can get it for pennies on the dollar. With remdesivir, however, it was like per pill, pretty unaffordable to people who didn't have health insurance. So here's a little, not fake, but simulated news posting.
This is an official health advisory from the CDC in this scenario.
The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. I don't know if I should read this.
Do it.
Okay, it does give the name of the drug. Calocivir. I don't know if I'm saying that right. Kalocivir. But if you look at remdesivir, it's very much the same spelling. Right. So I think that this can be a pretty good placeholder for remdesivir in the real scenario that was to unfold.
The data shows that remdesivir has a clear-cut, significant positive effect in diminishing the time to recovery. This is really quite important.
So early in the SPARS pandemic, health and medical professionals were hopeful that the outbreak could be contained through case identification and isolation. Quickly became clear, however, that the strategy was not as effective as initially hoped. So they're trying, what we did, social distancing, isolation. None of it's working. And because so many people assume that they merely had the flu, spread continues. By mid-December, so we're over a month into this thing, it's in 26 states. Mexico, Canada, Brazil, Japan, and other European countries are getting cases of it. And then an antiviral called calocivir, initially developed as a therapeutic for SARS and Middle East respiratory syndrome. These are both real diseases, or unsimulated. Yep. So they start pushing this drug, and the food for thought. Number 1, what risks do public health officials face if the public, media, and or political leaders feel that information about potential treatment options is being withheld? What kinds of outreach could public health agencies perform in advance of a crisis to mitigate any perceived lack of transparency? If such a perception emerges in the crisis, then how might it be diffused? So they're already seeing the problem of people asking questions and the spreading of not even necessarily misinformation, but just hesitancy. GMI. This is the name of a simulated company. I'm pretty sure I looked it up and it's not real.
This is a letter to Vice President for Animal Health.
So yeah, in this scenario, hooved mammal respiratory virus vaccine number 14, HMRV VAC 14. This is something that they were using on animals initially.
Okay.
Which they don't...
Wait, whoa. In 2021, a coronavirus caused an outbreak in Region 7, Southeast Asia, hoofed mammal populations. Our researchers developed and produced in-house an effective vaccine against the infection. Its subsequent approval and use successfully ended the outbreak in the region. While largely effective for preventing infection, severe side effects, including swollen legs, severe joint pain, and what's that one?
Encephalitis, that is like the swelling of the brain.
Okay.
Which
potentially resulting in seizures, seizure disorders, or death occasionally occurred. Given the millions of vaccines required for Region 7, this resulted in measurable losses to the animal population. However, these were acceptable compared to those from the respiratory infection itself. Each of the severe side effects was accompanied by a physician presentation that the affected animal was removed from the population and culled to prevent processing affected animals for sale. Whoa.
Do you remember when they were killing like buttloads of minks?
Buttloads of what?
I think minks.
Oh, that kind of sounds familiar.
Is that the name of that animal?
I think so.
Where they had like a fur factory or something? I don't remember what it was, but they just killed all of them because they were worried that they had COVID.
Oh, I kind of remember that.
So they're receiving reports on this vaccine right around the time that authorizing access to Colusivir for select patients. And this gets really interesting too. And I'm just going to kind of go through this because we got so much to cover. But
yeah,
SPARS, they were developing a vaccine for that they'd already been using on animals. So I think that's probably where they got this idea.
Right.
So yeah, they just see that this SPARS cove is very similar to this other disease that animals were getting in Southeast Asia, and it also came from the Philippines. So they decide that these two are that they're similar enough that the vaccine against it in the animals might work. Public Readiness and Emergency Preparedness Act, the HHS, provides liability protection for the simulated company SynBio, which to me that's like very, very much like BioNTech. I don't know if you say BioNTech or BioNTech. BioNTech is the one that is like basically the European branch of Pfizer. It's in Germany, and they teamed up to just make buttloads of these available on the other side of the planet. But SynBio and BioNTech.
Oh yeah, well, sorry. So yeah, it says Pfizer-BioNTech.
So they've merged at this point.
I think so. Or that's the same. Yeah, manufacturers Pfizer Inc. and BioNTech. What? Whoa. Hang on. Did you know this? Everyone ages 12 years and older is recommended to get a booster shot.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that it was even teenagers.
They've been lowering that bar quite a bit lately for boosters. And I mean, when are they just going to start jabbing the newborns with this shit?
Yeah.
I mean, they're working their way down quite quickly. This, to me, is a big point where the HHS and the FDA make it so that in the event that vaccine recipients experience any adverse effects, and that definitely happened across the board for the, 5 or 6 worldwide that are making these. You got your Sputnik over in Russia.
Yeah.
So at the end of this chapter, communication dilemma, maintaining trust in government process for ensuring the timely development of safe and effective vaccines when novel threats arise. Food for thought. 1. How might federal health authorities avoid people possibly seeing an expedited SPARS vaccine development and testing process as somehow rushed in quotation marks, and inherently flawed, even though that process still meets the same safety and efficacy standards as any other vaccine? Kind of looking at like Operation Warp Speed here.
Yeah.
Number 2, How might federal health authorities respond to critics who propose that liability protection for SPARS vaccine manufacturers jeopardizes individual freedom and well-being? And once it becomes widely available, head of the line privileges. Remember when Melinda Gates was like, we just need to vaccinate the minorities first?
No.
You don't remember that?
And from there, you want to do tiering in various countries to make sure your most vulnerable populations get it. In our country, that would be blacks and Native Americans.
Yeah, it's kind of weird because you think of Tuskegee and eugenics, and we're actually going to get into that. Head of the line privileges, enabling people to make their own informed decisions about whether to accept the novel vaccine. What are the potential consequences of health officials over reassuring the public about the potential risks of a novel vaccine when long-term effects are not yet known? I mean, we're just getting into reality here. Users beware, Chapter 4. So we're just getting into some simulated headlines again. Officials recommend use of unsafe SPARS drug for children.
Wow, so their timeline is pretty fast here.
Yeah. What was it, October of 2025 when this thing started?
Yeah, so this is not even 6 months and they already have a vaccine.
Well, but that's because they'd already been using one on animals rather than having to create a new one like we did, even though mRNA technology had been being in the development for years. So they're saying there's limited evidence of success in treating SPARS with Colisivir, and so they're going to put all their stock into vaccinations now. Food for thought on this one. How could pre-crisis partnerships and alliances have averted the potential for inconsistent messaging around Colisivir safety and efficacy? What are the potential effects of unaligned official messages about medical countermeasures, safety, and efficacy? How could social media have been used to supplement traditional methods of collecting data about the effectiveness of this simulated drug and its side effects? What is the difference between word-for-word translation and culturally competent medical countermeasure messages? What are the potential social and public health impacts of failures to deliver culturally competent medical countermeasure guidance? Chapter 5, going viral. So this is when they're going to game out, the pushbacks from celebrities and stuff like that. And there's a video clip that goes viral of a boy projectile vomiting, 3-year-old kid in North Carolina. Mom gives him the medicine. He starts puking, and it goes viral.
So it's a kind of a video that goes viral against the non-vaccinated cure, right?
Yeah.
In this simulation scenario.
Hands off my kid. Local kid vomits immediately after taking #Colisivir, and you wonder why I will never give it to my child. So it's trending. Kid looked like he was going to #Ralph after taking #Colisivir. Got it on video, passed out in his own puke. Zoltan Humphreys. So yeah, this clip goes viral. The FDA and the government agencies quickly attempt to remind public that correlation does not equate to causation and that vomiting is not even a side effect. This message, while scientifically accurate, lacked appropriate empathy and failed to assuage the public's mounting fears. As a result, it was largely ignored, and public concern continued to grow. You got to wonder what would have happened if they would have pushed remdesivir harder. Seems like most of their money was to be made on the vaccines anyway. The grass is always greener. Chapter 6. Confidence in Colisivir continued to deteriorate across the U.S., the United Kingdom, and the European Union jointly announced authorization for another treatment. This is another antiviral they call VMAX. Conducted a trial in the United States, did not show evidence of efficacy. I'm trying to think if there was anything like that in real life that happened. Maybe this could be the hydroxychloroquine because it's working over in Europe. Which right. I remember stories coming out of Germany and France of how much luck the doctors were having with it. But over here, of course...
Well, and also...
horse paste.
Yes,
ivermectin.
Ivermectin.
Just got us pulled off YouTube.
In a simulation scenario.
Yeah. I did see Joe Rogan was talking to Tim Dillon, and he was saying that... Did you say go back up?
No, I was saying, was he backpedaling a little bit?
No, he was saying that there's celebrities that are getting COVID and reaching out to him. Like big names that he's never, he knows who they are, but they've never talked or anything. He said like musicians and actors and shit. So there's people in Europe going on Twitter and they're touting VMAX. Felt better in a matter of hours. This is a lot like both hydroxychloroquine and ivermectin, right?
I think so.
And then GER selfie princess fires back. Hashtag VMAX is useless. Still sick with hashtag SPARS. Plus now I am doing unthinkable things to the toilet. Well done. Hashtag VMAX sucks with a pile of steaming poop emoji. Food for thought. How might pre-tested messages comparing U.S. and foreign medical countermeasures review process have enabled the U.S. FDA and U.S. CDC to support the USG decision to promote Calusivir as the antiviral of choice? Fauci. They don't ever mention Fauci. They just have that
public health.
Nagel. What responsibility, if any, does the FDA have to advise Americans to avoid using VMAX? How can the FDA and other public health entities best support the public when making informed medical countermeasure choices to protect their health? How should local public health and healthcare providers address patients' questions about the risk and benefits of foreign medical countermeasures? So it's already May of 2026, and public interest is waning. Chapter 7, The Voice.
Wow.
I mean, yeah, you're right. This all goes pretty quickly. We're not even, 7 months into this thing. People are over it.
I mean, people were over it by summertime.
Yeah, because even Kate Brown lifted the mandates for a couple weeks in July, June, July,
2020.
So they're admitting now that the death rate is way lower and it's not as dangerous as initially thought, combined with doubts about the antiviral they're pushing. This is where it gets kind of interesting. They bring a rapper in, and look at that, BZ. Remind you of somebody? Jay-Z. And I don't think he was ever really vocal one way or another as far as I could tell, but this guy first comes in and he's trying to tout, what's a Zap clip? Oh, that's ZapQ.
That's that ZapQ fake app. Scenario app, simulation app.
When I said yes, this is a tweet from BZ at PlayABZ. When I said yesterday that I was proud of the black community's contribution to the hashtag Tuskegee research, I meant that I was proud of how they remained strong in the face of adversity. I am saddened by the injustice and suffering they experienced, but I still strongly support the CDC and FDA's recommendation to take Calusivir. And now we have a name. This is the Corovax. Hashtag stop SPARS.
Hashtag vaccines work.
I think that's a real hashtag, isn't it?
I think so.
So at this point, the president's stumbling. Do you want to read that?
Well, no, I like that not long after 60 Minutes aired a live nationally broadcast interview with the former President Bennett when asked if she would want her new grandson to receive this close, how do you say that?
Calusivir? I don't know really.
Which was the drug, right? Not the vaccine.
That's the antiviral.
Bennett, caught off guard, paused, and eventually gave a hesitant, somewhat contradictory,
come on, man.
Experts say the drug is safe, and it's not easy, but I think everyone should make the decision that's best for their family.
It's funny how they just even map out a bumbling politician tripping over their words. Public criticism for not taking a stronger stance in support of the antiviral. The aftermath, however, did galvanize many House and Senate Republicans to support Calusivir use in earnest in an effort to demonstrate their opposition from the former Democratic president. It's funny, they do kind of flip the switch on the D's and the R's in this scenario.
Right.
Food for thought. Given the ability of powerful popular figures to reinforce or to undermine public health messages, what steps might health authorities at either national or local levels take to reverse the negative effects of BZ's unintended linkage of Tuskegee and Corovax, or Bennett's tepid, uncertain support for Calusivir? So one thing that I think they did learn from this, they keep mentioning Tuskegee. So Run DMC, one of the very original old school rappers, you've seen his videos, right?
More recently, you're saying?
Well, he did a vaccination rap
That's
music
right.
video.
I remember seeing that.
I think there's a minute and a half clip where he even mentions Tuskegee.
I got the vaccine, you got the vaccine, they got the vaccine, we got the vaccine. We can get back to normal, let me inform you, let's all get the vaccine. It's about community immunity, I'm talking unity for you and me. If Doc says it's good, then trust me, it's good. Now let's all get the vaccine. Alright. Trust me, believe me, we're not gonna have another Tuskegee. This ain't eugenics, no way. Nobody getting away with hiding information today. Got the FDA, CDC, black doctors and experts for you and me. There's a whole lot of data for the world is free. Do me a favor, check it out and you'll see. I gotta give a shout out to all of those involved that's helping us get this problem solved. People wanna know, is the vaccine safe? It doesn't have anything to do with race. 9 out of 10 people won't get sick. That's 90% effective and legit. We gotta act now. Please don't wait. Get the vaccine before it's too late. For real.
Ah, yes.
Did you notice how up until the part where the guy says it has nothing to do with race, it didn't show any white people?
Yeah.
It like goes right down the line. As soon as they mention race, there's 3 white guys. So I think, it's safe to say that they learned from this scenario that Tuskegee could come up. And one of the other purveyors of propaganda who I've just been repulsed by as of late, he also brought it up.
Given all of that, tonight, let's talk about the COVID vaccines. Why people are hesitant, what their worries are, and how they might be reassured. And let's start with the fact you can't characterize any one group as uniformly vaccine hesitant. No demographic is a monolith. Every group will have some who are excited and others who are anxious, and different groups will be anxious for different reasons. For instance, early on, you probably heard a lot about hesitancy among some black Americans, which can be a real thing. Even this pediatrician had reservations.
When the vaccine was first made available to both of you, did you both jump at the chance to get it?
No, no. I mean, not me anyway. I am black first in this country, and that has with it a lot of baggage, to tell you the truth. And so my public health degree, the culminating experience that I did was related to the relationship between black people and physicians. And that relationship has been a cantankerous one. And so those are the kinds of things that are deeply embedded and challenging to overcome, even within someone who's a scientist.
Honestly, I do understand that. We've talked before on this show about the fraught relationship black Americans have with healthcare based on both current bad experiences and the history of incidents like the Tuskegee experiment where doctors lied to black men, allowing them to suffer from untreated syphilis over decades, or, as most US history students would describe it, something I have not heard of. Although it does feel important to mention that doctor did wind up getting the vaccine, and in general, black vaccine hesitancy has dropped fast. Another group you might have heard have high hesitancy rates are Republicans, and that is also true. Around 30% of Republicans say they won't get it, and it's not hard to see why. Because fears and doubts about the vaccine have flown around conservative media, with one of the most prominent super spreaders being this fucking guy.
What about this vaccine? Why are Americans being discouraged from asking simple, straightforward questions about it? Questions like, how effective are these drugs? Are they safe? Do you need a reason to turn on the vaccine? And what happens if you do turn it down? Will you be allowed to fly on airplanes? Or go to work? Or enter the front doors of Madison Square Garden? Oh, now they're telling us the vaccine has a delayed response. Okay, delayed by how long? They don't say. If vaccines work, why are vaccinated people still banned from living normal lives? Honestly, what's the answer to that? So maybe it doesn't work and they're simply not telling you that. Well, you hate to think that, especially if you've gotten 2 shots. But what's the other potential explanation?
Okay, it is genuinely weird to see someone hosting a show on a supposed news network and ending every sentence with a question mark, especially when answers to most of those questions are out there for anyone who cares to know.
I mean, Tucker's definitely ahead of the game on a lot of those questions he was asking.
Yeah.
I think this was a video that came out
quite a while ago.
May 2nd, so probably that weekend.
Of 2021?
Yeah, I mean, shit. Over half a year ago.
Yeah. In my mind, the media complex was just trying to stay ahead of this narrative and try to keep it off, keep it steered the way they want it to, versus letting somebody else get out in front of it.
Mm-hmm. So they reach out and they try another social media called Unequal, all caps UNEQL. I don't know what this is supposed to represent. I was trying to figure it out this morning. Designed and first used at Berkeley in 2023, so it's supposed to be relatively new at this point. But a lot of undergrad college kids are on this, so they kind of use it as a way to reach them. And it's funny because in here they talk about how, I don't think we've gotten to it yet, but Democrats and college kids were more hesitant than like Republicans.
Oh.
Which is pretty much flipped, right? On its
Yeah.
head from how it really is. What are the roles of media literate staff and organizational capacity to communicate both social and traditional? This is food for thought at the end of, I think we're on chapter 8 now.
Yep.
What are the roles of media literate staff and organizational capacity to communicate via both social and traditional media platforms critical to understanding and influencing public debates about medical countermeasures like Calusivir? Why is it important to listen to the public during the emergency to find out what they think or want done about equity and access? Once again, it's not about race. If you ask Run DMC, how might the public's desire for fairness in allocating Calusivir ultimately influence public health outcomes? How could authorities at national and local levels craft an effective response to public criticism and concern about unequal access to the antiviral? How might the emergency communication principles of speaking honestly and openly and acknowledging the human dimension of the problem be applied in this instance? I don't think they learned anything from that chapter. They pretty much, dehumanize everybody who doesn't want to do it.
Right. Changing horses midstream is chapter 9, huh?
Yeah, and it's a simulated article from Hollywood Tribune, June 23rd, 2026.
U.S. government wasted millions on suspect science for useless SPARS drugs. And what are they talking about in specific? The Calusivir, the antiviral drug. It was flagrant misrepresentation of Calosivir's effects. Is any indication of current standards at the FDA? What confidence should we have in other recent approvals, particularly the highly anticipated SPARS vaccine, Corovax?
So basically the public saying, hey, you were kind of misleading about this antiviral. Why should we trust you about the vaccine? So yeah, the FDA is now admitting that these drugs are only minimally effective at treating SPARS. For the next few chapters, one thing they got wrong here was they withhold the vaccine from healthcare workers in this simulation. Here's a tweet. Dave Wilson at Dr. Dave, W.I. So doctors and nurses don't matter? Unbelievable. Good luck dealing with SPARS without us. It's almost the exact opposite, how people who were not vaccinated are losing their jobs. But yeah, they definitely made it available for healthcare workers.
Were they for the first ones, or wasn't it elderly first?
Well, I think it went elderly and then people who were, because of their jobs, which healthcare workers and just, I don't know what they're calling.
First line response.
Yeah, first line responders and essential workers.
Man,
and then
that phrase. Essential to keep the consumerism going.
So in this scenario, the doctors and nurses were not included as a priority group, and they start protesting that. So it just goes to show you, in a simulated reality, it doesn't matter what you do. The people who want the vaccination are going to protest, and the people who don't want to get vaccinated. In our reality, they ended up going that way.
Other groups harboring concerns about ACIP's vaccination prioritization plans include parents of children under the age of 1, adults over the age of 22 with chronic medical conditions, and people across the country who oppose vaccination generally.
So yeah, in this scenario, they did kind of emphasize on how it was more dangerous for kids to get it. So I guess they having the kids that are parents.
And did you read that that's during the initial stages of the SPARS vaccine campaign, all of these groups, with the exception of the anti-vaccinators, were sparsely organized and had limited contact with one another, reducing the need for any type of formal response from the public health community. So a little bit different.
Yeah, actually.
Oh, we're just getting started?
Well, I mean, as far as them coalescing together, that does happen.
Standing in line, protesting online. Chapter 11.
To determine how best to distribute limited doses of Corovax to members of priority groups across the country, the U.S. government resorted to new controversial tactics, notably having healthcare providers access patients' electronic health records to determine the number of individuals in high-risk populations receiving care in particular areas.
So in other words, they were digging through what's supposed to be confidential information in order to determine how many. Wow.
And we could say that that very much happened in real life.
Yeah.
Early stages of the vaccination campaign, social media also played a key role in vaccine distribution. In communities like Austin, Texas, Facebook Live, Snapchat, Twitter, and ZapQ helped alert members of the public when vaccine dispensing was occurring. In many cases, this led to rapid local responses that improved overall vaccine coverage. The PODs, points of dispensing. You think that's a real term, or it's just for here?
I think it's just for there.
They get overwhelmed, particularly in the 2026 flu season drawing closer. In Phoenix, for example, a social media campaign promoting vaccine dispensing at a closed POD, i.e. not open to the public, serving a local elementary school resulted in more than 2,000 parents and their children not affiliated with the school arriving. Sons of bitches. And only the kids attending the school were supposed to be getting the shots. I mean, was there stuff like that going on? Do you remember? Seems like there were just so many of these points of dispensing that you really couldn't. I mean,
yeah,
there wasn't really a shortage.
No, I don't think so.
You remember when that big snowstorm happened over the pass between Grants Pass and the coast? And there was a truck with vaccines in it, and it just started going around vaccinating people in their cars.
What?
Yeah. You didn't hear about that?
I don't remember this at all.
We'll have to look it up.
Oh my gosh.
I promise it's real. This is like right in the beginning.
Maybe you're ringing a bell here. Maybe something's coming back to me.
This may be the only time it pays off to be stuck in traffic. Oregon health workers who were coming home from a vaccine clinic ended up getting stuck in the snow. So they decided to hold an impromptu inoculation event. They had leftover vaccines. They went car to car, injecting stranded drivers before those remaining doses expired. The workers wanted to see the vaccines go to use instead of just being wasted. Good for them.
Dude, why do you think they went from 2 to 4 here?
Oh.
That's weird. We found a typo, Dexter. Why is active... okay, food for thought. 1. And this is chapter 11, right?
Mm-hmm.
Why is active monitoring of the information sea in which the public is swimming critical to the efforts of authorities to create conditions and provide information that support recommended public health behaviors? Wow, that's not very selective. How might a strong social media presence allow the federal government and public health officials more broadly to anticipate potential communication issues? Oh, man. I wonder what... Do you think they cut something out of there? Or they just fucked up on the numbering?
That's a good question. Are you going to read that one?
I don't know. Do you think it's important?
Given the growing trend of people building their own, quote, situational awareness, end quote, of an event via social media, example, tracking vaccine availability, how might health authorities capitalize on this collective information gathering and sharing behaviors to enhance public understanding of medical countermeasures availability and improve access to life-saving medical countermeasures? I don't know. I think it's relevant. Like, basically, it's like, how can we... LifeLog. How can we collect all this information and use it for our own good?
LifeLog?
Throwback to the episode.
Yeah,
Something
I like it. Don't put all your eggs in one basket, chapter 12.
How many eggs come in a dozen? Somebody did that. Had to have. So this is...
Get vaccinated against SPARS.
For July 18th. So we're still in 2026.
And this is a week before.
So this is, in this simulation, the scenario, we're almost to a year. Wow.
So this is interesting because the timing is right, even though it's a different time of the year. Do you remember what happened in Texas?
With the major storm?
In that power outage?
Yeah, go on.
So on July 9th, 2026, a week before Corovax was released for distribution in the United States, the power grid at the Grand Coulee Dam in eastern Washington state experienced a catastrophic failure. And while that was winter weather happening in Texas in this scenario, it's probably everybody's using their AC at the same time.
Right.
But if you look at this area, the outages in Washington, Oregon, Idaho, Montana, and British Columbia. I actually saw somebody when they first released this SPARS stuff show the coverage of the area that they're talking about, and it was essentially the same size.
Sure.
And though power was restored within a day of the initial outage, blackouts continued plaguing these areas over the next 3 weeks. Were you living down there when that happened? I think, yeah, you still would have been down there. Did you lose power?
It was wintertime,
Yeah.
But we were on the hospital grid, so it helped a lot.
Okay.
And because summer temperatures in this region are typically moderate and adequate numbers of emergency generators exist for hospitals and other public facilities, there were no significant public health concerns associated with this event. But if we think about how lately the summers in that area have been pretty extreme between wildfires and heat, wind, etc.
Well, and it's also could be said that Texas doesn't usually experience those. You know,
Cold.
they got mild winters usually. So
Yeah.
it's just kind of a funny thing.
Yeah. Unfortunately, all communication about the vaccine rollout was published in electronic form, and consequently, many individuals in the affected areas were initially unable to access information provided by state, local, or federal health authorities regarding Corovax dispensing. Now, I will say, though, hang on. Now, while this is talking about a power grid failure, but it's talking about Washington, Oregon, Idaho, Montana, and British Columbia. And you know what was happening in the summer of 2020 was crazy amounts of fire that was burning cities and probably providing power outages in those areas also, but it was affecting the rollout of the vaccine. And granted, it was destroying infrastructure. It was still a anomaly or a weather related issue, because that was, I think it was September.
Yeah,
right?
It was the day after Labor Day.
Yeah.
So they lose their grid. They've been putting all their eggs in one basket, hence the title of this chapter. So the internet goes down and people don't know what's going on with the vaccine rollout. That was a bit of an issue, relying solely on that for communicating. Food for thought. 1, while greater use of electronic media opens new opportunities for a broad outreach, what communication vulnerabilities exist that could impede communication efforts via electronic media? And this is good to think of in the event of like a solar flare or something, where the entire internet grid's going to go down as far as the global one goes, because those under ocean
Ground
cables,
cables,
they're not covered at all. But we could keep a local internet going here, but third world countries are going to be fucked.
Well, I think about a lot of the fact that the majority of the internet is on either Amazon's AWS servers or Google's servers. And so you have a large chunk of the internet on
Is
those
that
two
worldwide?
communications. I don't know how worldwide it is if you were to look at the whole thing.
What about Starlink?
I think Starlink runs on, it's either Google or AWS.
Is it? They don't have their own servers?
They use some of their own. They use some of their servers. Yeah, I mean it's
okay.
cheaper in the beginning. At
So
least for now, though.
are Bezos and Elon, are they like
I don't know.
behind closed doors good buddies?
Good buddies. It's hard to say.
So number 2, food for thought. How might local, state, and federal health officials be prepared for the unique vulnerabilities of electronic forms of medical countermeasures, emergency communication? And 3, how can public health communicators remain flexible when multiple disasters occur at once? They're talking about going around hand delivering flyers. I don't know if that's what's going to happen. Chapter 13, lovers and haters. Early on in the Corovax vaccination campaign, anti-vaccination groups began emerging on social media platforms. These groups initially came from 4 primary sources. Muslim groups across the country who opposed the vaccine on the basis that the original formulation was used to treat pigs. To me, this is a kind of a good representation of the Catholic groups who didn't want anything to do with this vaccination because there's rumors about fetal tissue and their anti-abortion stance. And that was supposed to be with the J&J shot. Their trial phases that they did have fetal. I mean,
who knows? Yeah.
It depends on who you look into. Like, a lot of people deny that's true, but I've seen it out there. We'd have to look into that before I would go either way. So you got your Muslim group because of their holy view on pigs. African Americans who refuse vaccination based on continued fear of governmental experimentation. We kind of looked into that with the Run DMC video.
Alternative medicine proponents.
Those fucking hippies.
Who had been also active in campaigning against Coalescivir and anti-vaccination activists who were galvanized by the anti-vaccination sentiment associated with the nationwide measles outbreak in 2015.
Didn't that happen at Disneyland?
Oh, that's right. That's right. Oh, yeah.
I remember. It got up into Seattle area.
And everybody was blaming all the parents who didn't vaccinate their kids.
Yeah, there was a big push for mandatory school vaccinations after that. I forgot. With the exception of this last group, none of the anti-vax movements were cohesively organized initially, existing primarily in small, isolated pockets. The general anti-vax proponents, however, existed as a core national group long before the SPARS pandemic. It's like RFK Jr. I mean, I don't think anybody really knew about that guy until
past few years,
COVID,
yeah.
But he's always been against it.
By 2016, they had created several primary Facebook groups and numerous Twitter accounts and began using the hashtags like hashtag no vaccines for me and vaccines kill.
And then I do see what you're talking about here with the comparisons to Reddit, where you would see a lot of anti-vax groups on there.
You could kind of hide in there a little bit more.
I mean, this looks a lot like real life. People claiming that it's inadequately tested and unknown long-term side effects, and that natural immunity resulting from contracting the disease was a more effective means of conferring protection. And I mean, that is something we're seeing in the news. Rand Paul was kind of early on that one.
Yeah.
Because he got it pretty early on. Did you see the most recent little spat between those two? Anthony Fauci blamed Rand Paul for death threats that he's getting. Because he's got hashtag Fire Fauci on his website with the donation
and
page.
he's also he's running ads on that.
He brought that up.
He's running
Fauci brought
probably
that up.
thousands of dollars, if not more than that.
I bet.
On YouTube ads.
Well, it's funny too, because what happened was he gets death threats all the time, and apparently his family does, but they apparently pulled somebody over in Washington, D.C. who had an AR, and he said he was going to kill Fauci.
Of course he had an AR, huh?
Uh-huh. And so Dave Smith, part of the Problem podcast, brought up a really good fucking point. Rand Paul has been attacked. He's been beaten up. He's been shot at on a baseball field when that Bernie supporter showed up. Like, not only has he had death threats, he's been in harm's way.
Right.
So it just funny. It shows him when Fauci's saying that in his face. It's just kind of like,
anyway. Get over it, dude.
Yeah, we're getting off point here, but look at this. Imam Ibrahim. I think Imam is like a Sunni leadership role in the Sunni Muslim.
Well, then his username is Seattle Somalian.
Somal Imam. So it's funny because I don't really remember hearing any backlash against the vaccine from Muslims. Do you?
I don't.
It's the Catholic.
But I have a feeling that if they were going to be trying to do a bit about Muslims not wanting to take the vaccine, that would just turn terribly, terribly, would backlash in their face so hard.
What do you think? Where do you think Sam Harris would stand on all that?
I don't know anymore with him.
In summation, they get a guy in Washington, D.C. who's kind of high up to go on with the White House press corps and tell everybody, all the Muslims, that it's okay to take the vaccine to bring back the Catholic stuff, the Pope recently, and I don't know how recent it's been now. It was like the end of last year.
Yeah.
Was talking about how it's okay.
Yep. You can still be Catholic and
so does that throw Catholic religious exemption out the window?
Probably.
So in early September, it's basically anti-vaxxers, Muslims, and African Americans who are largely isolated from one another, but kind of united in their stance against the vaccine. So in this scenario, Japan pretty much tells the U.S. vaccine to fuck off. They're making their own. And I just read this morning, so I'll just give you an overview. A lot of Americans are like, I'm going to go over and get the Japanese vaccine.
They make better cars. Maybe they make a better vaccine.
Food for thought. How un-American of you. I'd drive a Ford.
I drive
for
a
all
Honda.
you patriots out there.
And a Dodge, and I hate it to death.
Do you have a Toyota?
I don't, but my mom does, and it's still going.
I actually
260,000 miles on it.
I would trade my car in for a Toyota.
Antibiotics, ho?
So in in this scenario, and I think it's kind of like long COVID, what's going on with long COVID, but what happens is bacterial pneumonia begins to form in a lot of people who had SPARS, and so there's an ensuing antibiotic shortage. And so what the health authorities do in this scenario is they go into the backlog, and there's a bunch of stuff that's pretty much the shelf life's coming up. So they just unload that onto the public, and everybody thinks that it's expired. So there's some backlash against that. Something that didn't really happen here. We never really had a need for antibiotics with long COVID. All right, here we go. Chapter 17, entitled Vaccine Injury. So there's this woman who, and her name is Alyssa. This is a simulated person for this gamed out scenario. Alyssa Karpowitz was a proponent of natural health remedies, and her kid got bacterial pneumonia, had survived SPARS, but then got bacterial pneumonia and was on his deathbed, and they hooked him up to antibiotics, and he was cured right away. So that's who they're referencing here. In contrast to Alyssa's story, not all changes in opinion were in favor of public health messaging. As time passed, more and more people across the United States were vaccinated. Claims of adverse side effects began to emerge. Several parents claimed that their children were experiencing neurological symptoms similar to those seen among livestock exposed to the GMI vaccine. By May 2027, parental anxiety around this claim had intensified to the point of lawsuits. That month, a group of parents whose children developed mental retardation as a result of encephalitis in the wake of Coronavac vaccine sued the federal government, demanding removal of the liability shield protecting the pharmaceutical companies responsible for manufacturing Coronavac. So at this point in the scenario, we're ahead of where we are at in real life right now.
Yeah.
This is over a year after mass vaccination, and it's the kids that are starting to show adverse effects.
In this scenario.
In this
proposed scenario, not real life, not a conspiracy.
Not yet. We're catching up to it, right? What are we? We're coming up on a year of people in general getting vaccinated. Kids just started getting vaccinated.
Correct.
So to catch up to where they are right now, we're going to have to get to like a year from now.
Yep.
Pretty much. Basically what happens is these parents, and this is not going to happen in real life. I'm going to put my money on it right now. But they have appropriated funds to pay these people off. And this is the federal government doing this. So rather than, what was the name of the company? GMI and something tech?
Yeah.
I don't remember the name.
But rather than the pharmaceutical companies taking the loss, and also, not to mention, you know that if they took the loss, then they would suddenly have to pay everybody versus just having the government pay off these parents.
The ones that won't shut up.
Yeah.
This concern was particularly high among some African American parents who continued to question the government's motives regarding the CoroVax vaccination campaign. So the FDA, CDC, and other agencies were busy researching connections between CoroVax and the neurological side effects. Their efforts were continually undermined by epidemiological analysis produced by various non-governmental individuals and groups. A popular science blogger, Epigirl, for example, began posting interactive maps of the incidence of CoroVax side effects in April of 2027. So this chick just basically takes it into her own hands to make this map. And I mean, this goes on for a while, but she is basically just accused of being a agent of misinformation. And the NIH, FDA, CDC, they don't even try to counter her argument. They just call her a liar. More and more parents start filing for compensation under this PrEP Act, where the government allocated funds to pretty much buy these people off and shut them up. In this scenario, they never really cop up to a link between these adverse effects and the vaccination. What happens is politicians and health officials, they take the blame. A lot of people resign. And this is what I'm thinking this whole thing is for Fauci. With what we saw with was the Washington Post and one other publication did the FOIA, Freedom of Information Act request and got his emails.
Right.
And now with the whole theater with him and Rand Paul, looks like they are gearing up to throw him under the bus at some point.
I'd have to laugh at that.
I'm trying to think of who else might be in that camp. Who else could take the axe for this? If, in fact, it does start popping up in a year from now that kids are being fucked up by this thing. I mean, have you heard of all these soccer players over in, I guess it's football, over in Europe just dying after these vaccinations, dropping dead on the field?
But isn't it the adverse side effect, myocarditis is very high in athletic individuals in their 20s and 30s?
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that's the biggest correlation with myocarditis.
I've seen a lot of parents posting videos on TikTok and other places where they're saying their kids are all fucked up and that they can't really, I mean, there's nothing they can do.
Well, if you take this thing for a playbook, you go sue the government. You know, what if they did have a fund that they allocated when they did that $2.1 billion stimulus package or whatever that was?
Well, yeah, you'd have to dig through those thousands of pages to find out if it's in there. SPARS Aftermath, Chapter 19. This scenario, I don't know if we said this in the beginning, but this is told through the perspective of somebody in 2030 looking back at the years 2025 to 2028. So when they say today, it's supposed to be 2030. Today, nearly 5 years since the St. Paul acute respiratory syndrome coronavirus made its global debut, there remain human cases in 14 countries across Europe, Africa, and Asia. The pandemic officially ended in August of 2028, but the virus persists in domesticated animal reservoirs. WHO experts hypothesize that small isolated outbreaks of SPARS were occurring long before the disease emerged on a global scale in 2025. And they anticipate that future outbreaks will continue to emerge unless countries maintain widespread vaccination coverage. As the pandemic tapered off, several influential politicians and agency representatives came under fire for sensationalizing the severity of the event for perceived political gain. As with many public health interventions, successful efforts to reduce the impact of the pandemic created the illusion that the event was not nearly as serious as experts suggested it would be. President Archer's detractors in the Republican Party seized the opportunity to publicly disparage the president and his administration's response to the pandemic, urging voters to elect, quote, a strong leader with the best interests of the American people at heart, end quote. A widespread social media movement led primarily by outspoken parents of affected children, coupled with widespread distrust of Big Pharma, supported the narrative that the development of SPARS medical countermeasures was unnecessary and driven by a few profit-seeking individuals. Conspiracy theories also proliferated across social media, suggesting that the virus had been purposely created and introduced to the population by drug companies or that it had escaped from a government lab secretly testing bioweapons. What about gain of function? They don't mention that.
No.
After action reports, government hearings, and agency reviews following the pandemic were too numerous to count. Emergency funding appropriated by Congress to fight the disease became available partway through the course of the pandemic, but federal, state, and local public health agencies struggled to manage the procedural requirements to spend it. That's kind of funny. As a result, significant amounts of emergency funds remained unused as the pandemic wound down. As the investigations grew in intensity, several high-ranking officials at the CDC and FDA were forced to step down and withdraw from government in order to, quote, spend more time with their families, end quote. Exhausted employees of these agencies, many of whom worked long hours 6 or 7 days a week throughout the pandemic, simply wanted to put the whole response behind them. Are they being cheeky there? Little desire remained on the part of decision makers or those who served in trenches during the response to rehash the events of the past several years. The very real possibility of a future SPARS pandemic necessitates continued commitment to vaccination programs. You guys didn't learn a goddamn thing. As well as accurate, culturally appropriate, and timely communication from public health agencies across the planet. While the communication experiences of the SPARS pandemic of 2025 to 2028 offer some examples for how this communication can and should occur, they also identify practices that could be avoided. Yeah, don't have BZ talk shit about Tuskegee. Or at least modified for responses to future public health emergencies. Food for thought. I guess this is just a wrap-up of the whole thing. What benefits might arise if health authorities publicly share what they have learned from medical countermeasures used during the health emergency, including response missteps and successes, and communicate how government agencies plan to evolve on the basis of that information?
Well,
there we go.
Very interesting. Go get a copy of it yourself.
Definitely put that in the show notes.
Oh, maybe we should check out these references here. Do you see this?
Mm-hmm.
Plotting your scenarios.
From 2004.
2015. Is excess. Oh, okay. It's written in 2004, excess in 2015. And then the Public Readiness and Emergency Preparedness Act in 2005.
I've taken a look at that. That's weird that they referenced that in here.
Health Resources and Service Administration, National Vaccine Injury Compensation Program. Whoa.
Is that very
Look that up. The compensation program? So this is the Health Resources and Service Administration. And this looks like, it's a .gov website. National Vaccine Injury Compensation Program.
Is this the thing people are getting paid out through?
Yeah.
Oh, wow, and they've got it all to COVID-19 now. Of course, it wasn't like that in 2017, probably.
Right, but it was created in the 1980s after lawsuits against vaccine companies and healthcare providers threatened to cause vaccine shortages and reduce U.S. vaccination rates, which could have caused a resurgence of vaccine-preventable diseases.
I do think that RFK Jr. has talked about this pretty openly.
So this is kind of just their payout.
Is this tax money?
Well, I don't know. How does it work? I'm sure it is. Where else does government get money? Inflation? Too soon.
Wrecked pirate ships at the bottom of the ocean. So an individual files a petition.
But it probably doesn't cover COVID-19 at this point, is my guess. Because what does that say? It says, for claims associated with COVID-19 vaccine or other COVID-19 related countermeasures, please file your request benefits with the Countermeasures Injury Compensation
So it's a whole
Program.
other department handling COVID-19. Well, that's awesome.
So clearly there is a big pot of money set aside for vaccine problems. Very interesting. I feel like you could go through that SPARS document a few more times and probably pick up a few more nuggets of wisdom. The viewers out there, if you want to dig in and see what you find, let us know in the comments below or send us an email or share it with a friend.
I've read it 3 times and it doesn't get exciting with each read. It's kind of boring stuff, but it's interesting how they game this shit out.
I want to know who writes this.
writes the
whole like who writes the tweets, who writes the fake articles? Like, how do you even come up with that? I don't know. I mean, what's your conclusion after reading through this?
I want to go look at the other ones now, because this is probably like the least. The reason I wanted to look at it is just because of, in this scenario, they are acknowledging the fact that after a year, people are going to start having some pretty bad effects in this scenario.
Yeah.
And, you know, they did get a lot of things wrong.
They did.
They also got a lot of things spot on. So it'll be interesting to hang around in planet Earth for a while, see what's going down in about a year.
Yeah.
When kids have been being vaccinated. I would urge people, if you have not watched that entire John Oliver piece, we'll put that in the show notes as well. But that came out back in May. And Jeremiah's ex-employers, my current employers, told me to watch that because they wanted to convince me that I should get vaccinated. And man, was I never more certain that I didn't want to after watching that. And it's a 24-minute long piece, and it's pure propaganda. He quotes New York Times 4 or 5 times. The most intelligence-driven publication I think there
Throwback
is
to
out there.
episode number like 3 or 4 or something like that.
Mockingbird?
Maybe
2.
Maybe 2, okay. Yeah.
I think 3 is Gematria.
Yeah. It'd be interesting to see if there's any more of these scenarios outside of the main ones. You know, I'm sure there's some more that have been kind of kept quiet. I want to see, though, like, these are just like summaries almost, is what they feel like. Like this PDF that we just read through almost feels like a summary of the simulation.
So you think there's more?
I think there's more to it. Because I think they probably use some computer simulations to run the simulations. And I want to know what those things look like. Like, how do they game that out? I don't know, lots of interesting stuff.
If anybody's interested, here's some other simulations. Event 201 was John Hopkins, Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and the World Economic Forum. I mean, what a fucking trifecta that is. Those 3 working together. So Event 201, we're going to do an episode on that eventually. But for our listeners or viewers who want to look into that, that's a good one. These other 2 I have not heard of. Have you heard of that one?
I've heard of that one.
So that's a simulation where is it the one where a terror group?
Yep. It was released by a terror group
called A Brighter Dawn. That sounds like a cult.
A Netflix show.
So yeah, those are some other simulations to look into if you guys want to see what they are trying to learn from. Little scenarios.
Do your own research, people, and do your own research on simulations, because that's where you can catch the enemy.
These are simulations within a simulation.
Yes, if you want to live in a simulation. If you have anything you'd like us to talk about, be sure to send us an email or leave a comment down below. Please share this episode with your friends who may or may not like you after you send it to them. And
it's a good way to weed them out.
Yes. Find out your true friends. And until next time, stay warm out there. Don't forget to have a generator, backup power, some food, seeds, start sprouting some seeds. If you want to have a resource that can feed yourself when the grid goes down, is having some sprouting seeds in the pantry. We'll get into that in a future episode, though, okay? Self-reliance, food, all that stuff. And till next time.
We're going to close out with a short TikTok video of a skinny vegan guy taking a dip in a cold pool.
Yeah.
Let's kick it. Ice, ice, baby. Ice, ice, baby. All right, stop. Collaborate and listen. Ice is back with my brand new invention.
I like that.
Later. Until next time, stay safe. Fear your neighbors.